So if you want to have an algae-free tank with vibrant coral, I highly recommend RODI water, reverse osmosis deionized water. However, if you do use tap water and you have an awesome tank, please share that with us. But for most of us, we don't have, nice water in our city water, our well water, so we gotta, filter it out. But some places you might be able to use it. Just depends on where you're at. So, not to say it's impossible, but for most of us, it's probably not going to work out too good. All right, here we go. This is my RODI system. I started off with the 4-stage, which has pre-filter, carbon, then the RO membrane, and then the resin that used to be the mixed bed. After a while, I upgraded, and I added 2 more canisters of resin. So what I did is, after the membrane here, it goes to a cation bed, then an anion, and then I polish it off with a mixed bed, which this really doesn't ever deplete. But I'm going to change it out today anyway because it's been a little over a year. So the first step we want to do when we change our filters out, obviously, is turn the water off. So that's going to turn it off, but also you got to bleed the pressure out. So in my system, I have a float switch, which is inside this can. This can kind of give you an idea if you're thinking about storing water with a float switch. That's all I did, is drill a little hole and put a little float switch there. You just got to make sure you have the right valve and everything for your RODI system. But to bleed out the pressure, just simulate low water. So as you can see up there, my pressure gauge is 0. It was reading about 55. So now we're safe to change the filters. All right, well, you may ask yourself, why do I need this in the first place? What does RODI water do for me? Why can't I just use tap water? I mean, I've used it for fresh water for years. Why do I need this expensive stuff? You can, if you want, use tap water if you're just doing saltwater fish. However, you will probably have algae issues and cyano issues, and that's also why you don't want to do it in a reef tank, among other reasons. There's a lot of stuff in tap water especially that is not good for a reef, other than the chlorine and chloramines. There may be high nitrates in your water, phosphates, that'll all lend to higher algae, and that's really what we want to control, because algae will overcrowd coral, and it'll also make your tank unsightly. Such as this tank here, which is my fowler. As you can see, the fish aren't really keeping up with it anymore like they used to, so now I have to manually clean this. Even though on this tank I do use RODI water, it's just these fish create a lot of nutrients because they eat a lot. But this is an example of what you would see if you were using tap water. It could be, so that's why we like to use an RODI system like this. All right, so the way this thing works is your tap water, if you have a well, as long as you have enough pressure, a system like this, they recommend a minimum pressure of 45 psi, and they, really people say you should have higher than that. I have 55 psi, and I don't use a booster pump. We'll get to that in a minute. So you have to start by making sure you have enough pressure if you're going to use one of these. If not, they do sell pumps, and it'll increase the pressure. So the water comes in this red line here. It goes through this sediment filter. See how the sediment filter is orange? Let me get a new one so you can compare it. We'll open up this new one because I got to change it anyway. Just to show you what a new one looks like. Look at this. See the difference? See that? Now this has been about 6 months and I have city water. However, the pipes aren't all nice and copper all the way to the water plant. So you're going to have rust. You're going to have little particulates and stuff in the pipes. So that's what this thing does, is it just gets stuff like that out of the water so your membrane don't have to deal with it, because your membrane's the more expensive part. These things are cheap. This sediment filter is like $3, so that's a no-brainer to have that there. And it depends. You can configure this any way you want. Have 2 carbon blocks if you want, depending on if you have high chloramines or not. But for me, I use the sediment filter first, because as you can see, it gets rid of all the crap, all the big stuff out of the water. Then it goes from here, it goes to a carbon filter, which a lot of us are familiar with. I'll get a new one of those just to show you. You can't really see it too much in the canister, but what this does, it's like the same for your drinking water that you've used before. It filters out chlorine and chloramines because that'll also reduce the wear on your membrane. Chlorine and chloramines will wear out this membrane really quick, so that's why you want to change out these carbon blocks. Carbon blocks, I suggest changing them out at least every 6 months. As you can see, I'm due for that. And the sediment filter, just as it looks dirty, or you can look at your pressure gauge, and if your pressure gauge is looking a lot lower than it used to be, go ahead and change out that sediment filter too. From there, it goes from the carbon block up to your membrane. Depending on how good of a membrane you have, it might remove 95%, 98%. Nothing's perfect. They're not going to remove 100% of the particulates out of the water, but it'll get you close. And that's why we have TDS meters. And I'll show you that when I'm running the system in a little bit after we change everything out. The TDS meters only pick up things that have an electrical charge, however, so I'll explain how that can be a little thing you got to watch for as well. But basically, you're getting big stuff out of here, you're getting chlorine and chloramines out of here, and you're getting even more smaller, real small particulates out the membrane. And then we take it to our resin. So I'll explain a little bit why I have extra canisters of resin, but if you buy like a 4-stage system like this, what your resin does is it polishes the water and it gets rid of the rest of the stuff that all this missed. Like I said, nothing's 100%, so you're gonna have a few more particulates, if you will, in the water, and that's what the resin gets rid of, so you don't have anything else in your water. So after the water's gone through the sediment filter, the carbon block, the membrane, and it's gone to the resin, you should be seeing 0 TDS. All right, so now I'm going to change the filters. I'll show you how to do that. I always hang up my filter wrench somewhere where I can get to it real easy. So I have my water off, I have 0 pressure. So, and I recommend mounting these on a wall because there's an O-ring in here, and hardly any of us use the O-ring lube that we're supposed to, and these things sometimes are tough to crack. So I recommend, if you can, hang it on the wall like this, because they get tight. And you just loosen it like that. It's righty-tighty, lefty-loosey like we're all used to. And I always keep a bucket here too. You can't see that right now, but I'm gonna go ahead and dump it. And then I'll show you the difference. Ooh, that has some extra stuff in it. And I'm gonna rinse this out too. I'll show you the difference. I'll show you why we changed this. I'll drip a little on the floor, but see that? So this wasn't really, you know, plugging up per se, but it's been 6 months and I see little specks of stuff on here that comes from, you know, city pipes and stuff. So, and the water in there is pretty orange too. So I'm gonna go ahead, that's why I wanted to change this. All right, I'm back. I got my new filter. I rinsed out my canister. I got a little label maker. I like to put the dates on there. You can use a Sharpie or whatever. I just recommend doing it so that way you remember to change out, you know, when the last time you changed it. So like I said, I recommend every 6 months, or when this is looking dirty, or, you know, if your pressure gauge is looking lower than normal, try changing out the sediment filter. There's no top or bottom, it's just straight through. So drop it in there. There's a little notch in the bottom of the canister there. Try to line it up as best you can. And then just screw it in. Right there's that O-ring I was talking about. If you have O-ring lube, I don't know, there must be one that's safe for aquariums or whatever people are using, but you can go ahead and put it on there. I don't put it on myself. And then I'm gonna leave this loose for now. I'll show you a little trick. So let's move on to the carbon block. And then see these are your seals on either end of this. Make sure they're there. Make sure they don't fall out. Make sure the old one from the other one's not stuck in the bottom of the canister. And kind of push them back in if they're popping out. It's not gonna leak from here, but what it'll do is it'll bypass and it won't filter so good. So same thing, there's a little notch down there. We wanna line it up in there as best as we can. And then I'm going to leave it loose, just like that. So from here, we'll at least fill up the system. I'll show you how to flush this. All right, now for the tricky part. What you don't want to do after you change, especially the carbon block, sediment filter might be okay if you're just changing that. When you change a carbon block, you want to flush it out first. You don't want to run all that carbon through your membrane. You could ruin your membrane. These membranes are like, I don't know, 40, 50 bucks I think now. So what you do is you find out where the tubing is that comes out of your carbon block. So you just follow it around. Like this one's red here, see that? So I gotta step in front of the camera here real quick. I'm gonna find out where that is and I gotta disconnect it. And I'll show you the way to disconnect it with another tube. It's a little bit of a pain in the butt, but I got it out here, see that? So that's the tube that comes out of the carbon block. Now I'll do it on this one to show you how I did it. There's a little collar here and you want to push your tube all the way and give it a little twist. There's an O-ring inside here and it may be a little dry. So you push the tubing in, hold this, push it in, and then this little collar here you want to push up as you're pulling this out. And you twist it too. So just like that. That's how you want to undo those. And to put them back in, you just give it a little twist and make sure it's all the way in and give it a little tug to make sure that's not going to pop out on you, because the last thing you want is for this thing to pop out while the water's running, because if you've forgotten and you don't have a float switch, you know how much of a mess these things make. All right, so I'm going to turn the water on and we're going to flush this out and I'll show you what comes out of here. All right, the reason why I left these loose, say you just changed the sediment filter and you didn't change this one. I just don't like to have air locked in here and I don't want air going through my resin. So I leave it loose and then I'll turn the water on and the air is going to burp out of here. And once it starts to get up to here, I'll go ahead and tighten that up. So the way I do that is I'll slowly turn on the water. As you can see, my canister is starting to fill up. And it's almost there. All right, so right about there where it gets to the threads, I'll go ahead and tighten that up. Grab my handy wrench. And you don't have to kill it when you're tightening it, but you know, give it a little something, give it a little snug. And then on the carbon block, that's going to be the fun one. So let's go ahead and first fill up the chamber. And then after I get the chamber filled up, I'll show you what comes out of that. So we're going to turn the water back on. If you're changing this, then you're done. You don't have to do this next step. But the next step, if you're changing out the carbon block, go ahead and do this part. So it's going to go from here. Now it's going to start filling up this chamber. Okay, pretty much to the top there. I'm going to go ahead and tighten this up. Oh, get a little bit of water squirting out. That's okay. That's why I always have buckets when I'm doing this. So we're going to get that a little snug. And then we're going to flush this carbon block out. So whatever line, sometimes you know, there might be something else here and you might have to undo the canister because they're connected up top like these two are. Hopefully that's not the case. And you can just do this. But you want to be able to flush this out because I'm going to show you why. All right, so you're looking at a bucket right now, and I'm going to turn the water on, and look what's coming out. See that? See all that black sediment? That's carbon. You want to flush that out for a little bit. I usually do a few gallons. You just don't want to run that through your membrane, that's all. It'll plug it up. All right, so now I got a few gallons in there, and what that does, it just flushes it out, gets some of the air out. You just don't want to run that all through your membrane, that's all. So I'm going to go ahead and plug this back in, and then we'll move on to the next step. All right, I still have 0 PSI. My gauge was as good. That's because I wasn't pressurizing the system. So I'm going to go ahead and change my resin, even though it's not showing that it needs to be changed. This is the color changing resin. How you'll know is it'll turn gold if you have the color changing resin, and it'll go all the way up to the top. They recommend to change it when it's about an inch, inch and a half away from the top. That way it gives you plenty of time, so you're not putting things through your system and into your water that you don't want. That's the purpose of this, to remove it. It'll start leaching it back into the water if you don't change it in time. So you want to make sure you change it before that band's all the way up top here. So the process is the same. We're going to loosen the canister. And if you're just like watching at this point in time, don't let that fool you. I have 2 other canisters down here, which are my cation and anion. This is just my mix bed. This is to catch, like say I forget to change my resin, this will catch it. But as you can see, I'm pretty good at changing my other resin, so I don't have to rely on this one resin bed. But I'll show you how to pack these too. You can buy the refill kits, and we'll go ahead and pack this up. I'll show you how to do that. Okay, I'm off camera here, so I'm going to try to adjust this as best I can. This is just a little cheapy sink, so if you got a utility sink or something, go ahead and use that. This sort of makes a mess. The way you change this, if you haven't done it before, is this part down here at the bottom. This normally goes up like this. On the bottom is where you unscrew it, and there'll be a little sponge inside there too. You want to keep that. See a little sponge? Make sure you don't toss that out. That just shows you the resin there. So I'm going to go ahead and toss this. Really, maybe the anion part of this might have been used up. It's hard to tell because see how it's kind of gold in there? It's supposed to be purple and blue, so I bet that part's been used up for a while. But you can see it kind of don't worry about it touching your hands. You can wear gloves if you want, but it doesn't burn or anything. I just rinse it off. Go ahead and take this and dump it out in the trash. Then after you've emptied it out, go ahead and rinse it. Get as much as you can out of it. Don't worry that you're putting tap water in here. It's not enough. It's going to really affect anything. I like to give it a little swirl just to try to get any extra that's in there. And then go ahead and rinse your sponge and cap off too. So I got my resin here. This one's just a mix bed, and it should be a nice vacuum sealed package. If it's not, and you caught it in time, like when it first came in, go ahead and tell them and have them send you a fresh one that's nice and packed like this, because this stuff goes bad when it's exposed to air. So you don't want this exposed to air. So it should be nice and sealed up. And when you open this, don't just go and tear it across the top. That's how I messed up the first time I did it. Kind of, you can make like a little corner like that. Oh, this stuff is gold, so cool, it wasn't used up. I wasn't sure if this was purple and blue, or it is purple and gold. So, so make you a little notch like that. And then you're gonna want to pour it to about here, but there's a little trick. So you might have to squeeze the pouch a little bit because it's sort of wet. I don't know how, it's not really wet, but it's sort of wet. I don't know how to exactly explain it, but just keep squeezing and pushing it in. Sometimes I got to make the hole a little bit bigger. And I'll just give it a little extra like that. But when I tear it all the way across, then you kind of need a funnel because it wants to go everywhere. So you want to make like a funnel out of the package. Unless you have those funnels. I haven't bought one yet. I was thinking about it. If you have one, let me know if it works any better for you in the comments. And this, like I said, it sort of makes a mess. Now I'm getting towards the top. So what you do is you start tapping it. You want to tap it a lot, and that just consolidates the resin. It's little BBs, really. You see you getting towards the top, just kind of give it a tap. And you want it as tightly packed as you can. I'm getting pretty close here. And you'll probably have extra if you buy it from bulk reef supply. There'll be extra in here, so don't feel like you have to get it all in there, because you'll just end up making a mess if you try to do that. I think that's pretty good. Because remember, you got to get this sponge and that back in there, so you need enough room to put that in there, but you also want it tightly packed, so you don't want to put that in there and have like a little air gap. You just keep tapping, maybe like that. I'm going to try that. You just keep doing that, and you screw this back on. And if you get some in the threads, don't worry about it unless there's a lot in there, but you can always take it off and get some paper towel and wipe it up. But you want it to be tightly packed. You don't want to be hearing some swishing around or something. And now this is ready to be reinstalled. All right, so I got our canister full of the resin. I got my can here. Same thing, there's a little hole at the bottom. I want to line that up with a little notch down there. There's an arrow on these two to kind of help you out if you forget. A little arrow right there pointing up says this end towards cap. You get in there, and then same thing, I'll leave this loose. It's going to take a little bit longer to fill it up this time because the water is going to go through the membrane. It's not going to fill up as fast as it was with the other ones. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure everything's plugged in. I'm going to flush my membrane out. If you got a little flush valve, I like to turn that on too, because what we're going to do basically in essence is we're going to turn the system on and it's going to start filtering. So if you're down to this same system and you're changing this one out, I recommend if you got a flush valve, go ahead and flush when you turn your water on. And this is going to slowly fill up. All right, so another thing that I want to mention, every time you make up water, say you just filled up your water and you have a float switch like I do, or if you're turning this on for the first time, you want to turn that flush valve on, especially if you have a TDS meter, because it's going to start reading pretty high at first, and what that's called is TDS creep. So when you turn this flush valve on, you're running the water through the membrane in reverse, and it'll flush it out. But every time you turn this on, it's got fresh city water just sitting there. It's not filtered water, so you're going to put all that city water basically towards your resin, and it's going to burn your resin up quicker. So that's why we want to flush this out. And what I'm doing is I'm watching my TDS meter here. It'll start off like around 144, and then once it gets down below 20, I'll go ahead and turn that flush valve so it's going through its regular cycle, and then it'll just slowly go down to around 3. And that way I know I'm not putting a ton of stuff into my resin. So right now I'm reading 12. I'm going to go ahead and flip that, and this is going to fill up a little bit quicker. As you can see, this resin chamber is filling now. Now I just changed the resin, so that's why it looks like different colors here. But it's the same thing. I'm also getting rid of this air bubble in here. So you can also use this technique if you have air bubbles in your chamber. Go ahead and when the system's off, just crack them loose and turn the system on, and you'll watch that water level come up. And then just go ahead and snug your container up. Depending on which side you're on, if you're on before the membrane, it's going to fill up a lot quicker, so make sure you pay attention. But if it's your resin canister, which usually it is, you got some time. Like you can see how slow this is before I got to actually, close this canister up. I'm actually about right here right now, and it's just slowly creeping up. So that's just a way to get the air out. I personally like to do it. You don't have to. I just don't like to have any air in my canisters. Give it a little snug. And then what I went ahead and did is I took the end off of where this goes into my storage container, my brute trash can, and I'm going to let this resin flush a few gallons out of it too, because it's brand new resin. Just so if there's any particulates from changing it, because when you the act of opening the canister and putting it in and rinsing it out and everything, you're going to introduce stuff into the water, and you're not going to have zero TDS. So just to flush it all out, I'm going to go ahead and do this and let some more water process. And you don't have to waste it if you don't want to. I mean, you can water your plants or something. I don't suggest drinking it or giving it to your dog or anything, but if you want to water some plants or something, go ahead and use it for that. So while this is doing this, you may be asking, well, that's great, Matt, but how do I change out this membrane? That's what I really want to know. Sorry I didn't do it in this video, but I can explain it to you. It's a little more involved. You just pop this off. These are just little clips. You'll push that up, and then the way I showed you how to disconnect these lines, I think there's 3 of them. You'll disconnect all the little lines. You'll take this off. I suggest if you got like a little bench vise or something, put it in that, because there's an O-ring in here too, and this thing's usually pretty tight. There's a little cap, so you unscrew the cap, and that's where your membrane's at. And you'll probably need some needle nose pliers to pull that membrane out of this container here. So that's how you change the membrane, and then I recommend flushing it when you're done. And they say to also run a few gallons of water, flush it out when you're done as well, because there's preservatives in here, and you don't want to put all that into your resin and burn up your resin. All right, I got the filters changed. I have the system restored. You can see I made a little bit of a mess. And there's that sediment filter. Like I said, I gotta get rid of that. That's how much water I ran out this time, just to flush everything out. Looking at our TDS meters, that's after the membrane. You can see it's 3, which is pretty good. Starts off usually around 140. My water does. Your water may be higher or lower, depends on what's in it from, you know, if you got a well or city or whatever. Then coming out of the system, after these 2 stages, which is the cation and the anion, if I move this to the left, which it is already, you can see I'm reading 0 there. And then if I wanted to read, that just lets me know, you know, if I got to change out that resin. But then after this canister, which is the final polish, if I need it, I just move it over there. As you see, it's still 0 either way. So that's good. This we're reading 1 when it's to the left there, then I know I got to change out one of these. And usually, focus, usually it's this anion here, I'll be able to see it. These are color changing, so it kind of gives you a visual indication. That's why I don't even have a date on this one, because it's usually about 3 months for me, and it'll just be up. But I just changed it a few days ago, so I could put that on there. And of course, I couldn't find my good labeler, so I just had a little cheapy price thing that I use just to remind me of when I change these filters. Like I said, I suggest every 6 months for your carbon block. Sediment filter is necessary, but if you haven't changed it within 6 months, go ahead and change it when you do your carbon block. And resin is necessary. If you get the color changing resin, you'll see that yellow band, that gold band that'll come up. Change it when it's about right there. Don't wait until it's completely gone. Even still, like you may see it here and you think, oh, I got a little bit of time, but if you look around the other side, you might see like the other half, it's all the way gone. So that's where these TDS meters are come into play. Even if you don't have an inline one, they make pourable ones. You can stick it in your water and test it. I highly recommend at least getting one or the other. That way you know for sure. Even one TDS water, you know, it's going to have something in it. It's going to have ammonia, you know, something. There's my pressure there. That's probably the minimum you want to run. That's actually 55 PSI. Some people have a booster pump and then they'll kick it up to around 80 or so. The higher the pressure you get, the better, the more efficient, I should say, your membrane will be. This works pretty good for me. It's just a matter of having wastewater. So the higher the pressure, the less wastewater you're going to have. But people use their wastewater, you know, wash their clothes or something if you want to save it. Me, I put it down the drain. I don't even worry about it. It's not that big of a deal to me, but you know, everybody's different. Maybe you live in an area where you want to conserve water more, so that's always an option too. Well, that'll do it for this video. I'm Reefer Matt. Thank you for watching, and happy reefing.